oriented programming, right? Yeah. And few important terms already we discussed. As I already told you, class is a program template. Is a program template. It have the behavior of entity and a model or blueprint. So class have all the behaviors like entity, model, and blueprint. And class actually comprises of only properties and methods and accessors and constructor. Only these can be there in a class. So some frequently asked questions, as I already told you, can we declare variables and functions in class? So answer is, can we declare variables and functions in class? No. Why? They are immutable, right? So technically we cannot have variables and functions in a class because variables and functions are immutable. Variables and functions are immutable. Class can have only mutable members. Class can have only mutable members. So we cannot declare variables and functions in a class. But very important is, remember, you can use variables and functions in a class. You can use variables and functions in a class. You cannot declare. So you cannot declare, but you can use the variables and functions in a class. So you can use anything in a class. So you can declare a function outside class. You can access and use it inside class. So now one more important, what are properties, what are methods, what are accessors and constructor. Actually, these are very common in JavaScript also. JavaScript classes also same. In JavaScript you have class, and the behavior of class in JavaScript is same as in TypeScript. Only in TypeScript few changes are there that we will see. Some more important points are there in TypeScript. So JavaScript class also have same type of members. JavaScript class also have same type of members. That means we have properties, methods, accessors, and constructor. These are common for even JavaScript people also. They are already there in JavaScript classes. But what is new in TypeScript and you don't have in JavaScript is actually TypeScript class comprises of two types of members. One is static and non-static. TypeScript class comprises of two types of members, static and non-static. This is not supported in JavaScript. It is not supported in JavaScript. So JavaScript members all are non-static. By default, JavaScript members all are non-static and static depending on how they are configured. But in JavaScript, you don't have a specification for declaring static and non-static members. In JavaScript classes, there is no facility of configuring member as a static or non-static. But TypeScript class comprises of static and non-static. Another important, I will explain what is static and non-static. First I am showing difference. Another important is TypeScript class can define access modifiers for members. Access modifiers for members like public, access members like public, private, protected. What are those also? I will explain. This is not there in JavaScript. So in JavaScript also you learned classes. In JavaScript also you learned properties, methods, constructor, accessors, all are there. But JavaScript don't have static and non-static members. And JavaScript don't have access modifiers. So now TypeScript contains static, non-static members. TypeScript contains access modifiers. What are these and how they are used? We will see today. So first I just explained you difference. JavaScript also have class, TypeScript also have class, but TypeScript class additionally support these things. What are these? We will see now. We will discuss about that. So class is not a new concept. You have seen that same in JavaScript also. First, you need to understand what is a class, which I already explained yesterday. Now the second point is how do we configure class? Configuring class. How to write a class? How do we configure class? Actually, class can be configured in two ways. Class can be configured in two ways. Class can be configured in two ways. We have class declaration and we have class expression. First, how to configure a class. Class have two configuration techniques. We have class declaration and class expression. I will show you here how to configure the class. I can write like this: the keyword class and the class name. Class name is some product, and in that we can have some class members. In that we can configure some members. There is another technique. We can define LET, employee, is equal to class and the members of class. These are the two ways of configuring a class. Both are configuring class. Then what is difference between these two? The first one is this is class declaration. This is class declaration. And this one is class expression. Class declaration and class expression. What is difference between these two? What is difference between class declaration and class expression? The difference is actually class expression, you can see there is no name for class. class expression is having no name for class. What is employee? Employee is not class name. Employee is not class name. Employee is the name of memory where that class is present. Employee is not the class name. Employee is the memory in where class is stored. And if a class is not having a name, then we call it anonymous. So class is anonymous here. It is not having a name. Why you created a class without name and why you have a class with a name? Generally, class without a name, these are used for callback mechanism. Callback mechanism means these classes will load according to situation. So that means according to the state, according to the situation, these classes will load into memory and automatically they run. But the above declaration, these classes will load only when they are requested. That means you have to request the class, you have to create an instance of class, and through that you have to access. That means the class declaration, this is class declaration, right? Declaration. Class declaration is intended to load the class into memory and access the members of the class whenever it is requested. But class expression, it is used to decide when the class need to be loaded according to the situation. That means we don't want class every time. We want the class to be loaded and used in the memory only when that situation matches. In that case, we use class expressions. But the members in class both are same. But when to use them, that is very important. So this is actually declaration. So I will give here class declaration. Class declaration is used when a class is requested, and loaded into memory. Class declaration is used when a class is requested and loaded into memory by using an instance of class. Syntax, it will be like this. We have class and a class name and whatever the members you can have. Another one is class expression. Class expression is used to configure anonymous class, which is loaded into memory according to the state and situation. So you are not going to call it. It will load according to the situation. So we generally call that as callback. That mechanism is called as callback. And syntactically, so class like this, let, some reference name is equal to class and whatever the members of class. That is how we define the class declaration and class expression. So first point, you have to learn how to configure a class. So class expressions you will see in later stages. When you are using callbacks, you are designing callbacks, you will see class expression. Regularly, we will use class declarations. To build a library and to use the library, we use class declaration very much. Expressions also later used, we will see. So first point, how to configure a class. Second point is, in the class, what are the members already given. Now you need to know that. So class members, second is class members. First, how to configure the class. Second, what you can keep in a class. That means class members. So here, as I already told you, class members, we have properties. Properties are detailed, we will see. Properties and methods and accessors and constructor. That means in a class, you can have properties, methods, accessors and constructor. Now, very important, what is the purpose? What is the purpose? Detail also we will see. First, properties are used to store data. Properties are used to store data. And methods are used to configure functionality. Methods are used to configure the functionality, or you can say the configuring of actions, what actions it have to do. So data is stored in properties and functionality is defined through methods. And accessors will provide a fine grained control over property. Accessors will provide a fine grained control over property. I will show you. Just I am giving definitions what they are. We will see what are properties, methods individually. Just I am giving first definition. Data is stored in properties, functionality is defined with methods, and we control the properties in a more better way by using accessors. And constructor is used for instantiation. Constructor is used for instantiation. Instantiation is creating of objects. Constructor is used for instantiation, creating of objects, which you will detailedly see, right? Because according to you people, when you learn OOP concepts, constructor is used for initializing values, which is not. So which is not architecturally correct, right? Constructor is not just for initializing values. It is actually for instantiation. We will see detailedly, we will understand about that. So a class contains properties, methods, accessors and constructor. Data is stored in properties, functionality is defined in methods. We can control properties in a more better way using accessors, and we can handle instantiation, object creation for class by using constructor. Detailedly we will see them. What is new in TypeScript is static and non-static members. This is new in TypeScript, which you don't have in JavaScript. JavaScript have properties, methods, accessors, constructor, all are present in JavaScript class also. But in TypeScript, additionally, you have static and non-static members. Let's see what are static and non-static. Now, generally, if you ask this question to any OOP learner, any person who learned object-oriented programming, Java, C++, .NET, anywhere, if you ask what is static and non-static, what answer you can expect from him is 100 to 100%. You will see people giving you an answer like static means you can access by class name. Right? I never asked how it is asked. accessed. I asked what it is, right? What is static and what is the purpose of static? Static members are accessed by class name. How they are accessed, I don't want. The question here is what is static and what is non-static. But majority of people's answer is it is accessed by class name, it is accessed by instance of class. That is a wrong answer at architectural level, because generally when anyone asks what is static and non-static, right, I will tell you detail here, right? So what is static and non-static members? So let's see a detailed concept first. So I will make it clear. Actually, the terms static, static and non-static, the term static and non-static, or people call as dynamic. The term static and non-static, actually, you should know that these two terms are related to memory. In computer technologies, the word static and non-static, they are related to memory. They are related to memory. That means if anybody talking about static, non-static, that means he is talking about static memory and non-static memory. The words static and non-static, they belong to memory. What is the behavior of these two types of memory? What is a static memory and what is non-static memory? How they behave? Let's see. Actually, suppose we designed one component. In this component, we have a static member, some S, and we have a non-static member, some N. That means static members, non-static members. In TypeScript, static members are defined by using the keyword static, and non-static members are defined directly without any keyword. If you are using the word static, that means it is a static member. So technically, the point is, now this static S is allocated into, that means for this component, the memory is allocated. This memory is allocated. That means this memory is allocated. For this component, the memory is allocated. That means this entire memory is allocated for the component, right? This memory is allocated for the component. Now what it will do is, it will keep static members in static memory S and non-static members in non-static memory N. Now what happens is, now we are doing some manipulations on static. S is equal to, so actually S plus 1 means initially S value is 0 and initially N value is also 0. Here N value is N plus 1. Both are incremented by 1. S is incremented by 1, N is incremented by 1. Now what happened is, we created an object. So we created an object obj1. We created an object for first component. For this component, for that component we created an object. This object will go and start using this memory. static memory and it will use non-static memory. Now what happens is in static memory, it will set S equal to 0 plus 1. That means S equal to 1. And in non-static memory, it will set N equal to 0 plus 1. Then means N equal to 1. Now what happens is for object 1, S equal to 1 and N equal to 1. Now object 1 finished using the memory. When object 1 finished using the memory, it will leave the static memory. It will not disturb it. But it will reset the non-static memory. It will reset the non-static memory. That means object 1 finished. When object 1 finished using, it will leave the static memory as it is, untouched. It will leave the static memory as it is. It will reset the non-static memory. When it resets the non-static memory, that means in non-static memory, N is again how much? 0. N is again 0. But static memory is untouched. It is untouched. That means here S value is how much? 1. But here N value is set to 0. Now what happened is a second object is created. We created another object. We created another object for the same component. For the same component, we are creating another object. Now when this object goes to use the memory, the static memory will continue. The static memory will continue for the second. The previous memory is continued to the second. That means now for object 2, S equal to already it is 1 plus 1, it will be 2. But non-static resets, then non-static is again how much? 0 plus 1, it will be 1. Suppose I created another object 3. That means object 2 finished. Object 2 finished. Then it will reset the non-static memory. But static memory continues. That means now when third object goes, so the S value will be 2 plus 1. It will be 3. But N value will be always 0 plus 1. It will be 1. That means if anybody asked technically what is static, now tell what you observed. What is static? What is the nature of static memory? What is the nature of static memory? What is the nature of static memory? What you observed here. So here static is continuous memory. Static is continuous memory. And non-static is discrete memory. Static is continuous memory and non-static is discrete memory. That is the official definition. Now the question is, as a developer, when you will use static memory and when you will use non-static memory, right? That is the point. Let's see. First, the definition for static and non-static in any technology in the world is continuous and discrete. If anybody asks what is static, static refers to continuous memory. And what is non-static? Non-static refers to discrete memory, disconnected memory. Now, what is the real world scenario for this I will give you. That means as a developer, how you will decide that for this situation I need a static member. For this situation I need a non-static member. How you will decide? Let's see. I will give one example now. This we will practically implement. I will show you. We will practically implement. I will show you. Now, to understand where this is really implemented in real world, I will show you. For example, we have an application. In this application, we have some actions like insert, like update, like delete. Now we have a database here. So we have some database. Now this is some database. We are having some database. I want these objects to perform those actions. Insert object for inserting, update object for updating, delete object for deleting. They have to do those activities. But before insert, before update, before delete, we need to connect. Connection is important. Without connecting, you cannot insert, you cannot update, you cannot delete. Connecting with database is the first step. After that, you can insert, update or delete. Okay, now I given this connection as static connection. I given the connection as static connection. Then what happened is the first object, insert object, you clicked insert object, it connected. It loads the connection into memory and it will perform insert. After that insert object finished using, that is a static object. Connection is static. That means, is it still there or destroyed? Is it still there or destroyed? It is still there because it is static. Now update need not to load connection again. It can use this connection. Update need not to load connection again. It can use that connection. Delete need not to there. It can use that connection. That is good. That is good. But something bad. That means this is good because you are first time connecting and you are doing all operations on it. For example, you are using Gmail. In Gmail, you want to check your emails. Then you will log in into Gmail. After you logged in into Gmail, you watched your first mail, finish. Now you want to watch your second mail. Will it ask login again? Will it ask login again? No. That means the connection for the first will continue for others. You can watch other mails, you can compose mails, you can go to other details, everything you can do. What is good? What is bad? The good is you can do continuous operations. You can do continuous operations. The bad is, suppose you haven't signed out and you closed the browser. You closed the browser, you haven't signed out and went away. Somebody opened your PC and opened Gmail in browser. Your account opens to them. Am I right? That means static is not secured. Static is not secured. And if I am not doing insert, update, delete, all these operations, means if I am not doing any another operation and still connection is in the memory, then it is heavy on memory. It occupies more memory. That is the reason your trainer will tell you that static members occupy more memory. Why? Because they are continuous. If they are continuous, they will obviously occupy more memory. They are not safe. Memory leaks may happen. But we need them when we need continuous operations. So when you need a static member, A static member is required when we need continuous operations. When we need continuous operations, then we need static member, because static uses continuous memory. Continuous memory. Now let's see if it is, now let's see, I will give this connection as non-static. I will give this connection as non-static connection. Then what happened is, when I click insert, insert will load this connection. After that it will insert. After inserting, it will disconnect. It will remove that from the memory. Now when you want update, there is no connection. Update have to load this connection again. Update have to load this connection again, because it is no longer available in memory. It is destroyed. Update I have to again load the connection, and it should connect with this, and after that it is destroyed. That means for every operation you need to connect. This is good because memory is well managed. So memory is well managed. Memory leaks will not happen. But this is bad if I need continuous operations. If I need continuous operations, this is not good. This is good because it uses less memory and it is safe. For example, you are doing some money transaction on a Paytm or PhonePe or something, and you transferred money to a person. So after, when you transferred, it asked you password, means some security code. You entered the security code and transferred the money. After, within that, in just 2 seconds, I want to transfer some more money to the same person. Again, password is required. It cannot continue your previous session because it is not safe. That means there it is using what kind of memory? Non-static memory. That means we need discrete operations. That means we don't want continuous operations. That means you logged in into ticket booking. It will wait 5 minutes. You are not doing your session out. You have to log in again. Right? You logged in into bank application. You are not doing any transaction for 5 minutes. Automatically it is sessioned out. That means it cannot continue the memory because it is not safe. So when to use static? Gmail will use a static memory, because until you sign out, it will keep you. You close it also, it will be still in the memory. It will be in the memory, but it is not safe and it is not good for memory. So, but we need continuous operations. A developer will decide how and when to use static and non-static. If we need continuous operations, then use static. If we need discrete operations, then we need non-static, right? That is the main purpose of static and non-static. Static refers to continuous memory and non-static refers to discrete memory. Technically, here, another point here, static members in a class are defined by using static keyword. Another point, static members are accessed within the class and outside class by using class name. Now, these things people give as a definition, which is not good. That means when we ask what is static, what is non-static, then many times people give you this definition, that static members are accessible by class name. How they are accessed, I don't care. I don't care how they are accessed. I don't want at all how they are accessed. I just want why we need static. When we need static, that is important. But this becomes definition for many learners, which is not good. right? This must be your definition always about static. Static is continuous and non-static is discrete. And very important, this is static. What about non-static? That means, so static static member static member allocates memory and continues the memory until destroyed. And very important, this is static member allocates memory and continues the memory until destroyed. Generally that memory will be destroyed when you close the component or module, or you close the application. That, or you can even put a session timeout so that after that particular time it will clean up the memory, but you have to do it all manual. Now another important is non-static members are directly defined without any keyword and they are accessed within the class by using this keyword. They are accessed within the class by using this keyword, and outside class by using instance of class. Static members are accessed anywhere by using class name, but non-static members, we have to access them by using this keyword within the class. Outside the class, we have to access by using instance of class, not by class name, by using an object of class. That's how we need to access, right? Yeah. So now let's see one small example how this actually works, right? Let's see. Let's go to the design here. Okay. Now I am creating a class demo. In this demo class, I am creating static s is 0. I am creating, so non-static n is also 0. So s is 0 and n is 0, but n is non-static and s is static. Static members are declared with static keyword. Now I will write a constructor. Later I will tell you constructor also, but I hope if you learned JavaScript, in JavaScript constructors are defined by using constructor keyword. And you know how JavaScript constructors are defined. In this constructor, I will do one thing. I will access static members. Static members are accessed by using class name demo.s. Demo.s is equal to demo.s plus 1. We are increasing by 1. Similarly, non-static members are accessed by using this. This dot n is equal to this dot n plus 1. Both are incremented by 1. But static members are accessed within the class or outside class by using class name. Non-static members are accessed by using this keyword, within the class, right? Now I am having a print method. This print method is printing the details. Console.log s is equal to the value of demo.s. And I want to print n. So n is equal to the value of n, this dot n. We are printing the value of s and n. So that is a simple logic I have defined. We are incrementing and printing. Now see what happens. Let's create an object for this class. Let obj1 is equal to new class. What is the class name? Demo. Similarly, let obj2 is equal to new class. For the same class, we are creating let obj3 is equal to new demo. We are creating three objects. For the same class, we are creating 3 objects, and obj1 we are printing it, and obj2 we are printing it. So we are printing the details of S and N. We are obj3. We are calling print method. It is printing. That means we created 3 objects for the same class. We are creating 3 objects for the same class and we are printing. Now what happens, as I showed you in the diagram, first object will go to S. It will increment S plus 1. After that, it will leave the memory without disturbing. That means when second object goes, this memory will continue. The previous memory continues. When third object goes, the second memory continues. But what about N? N will reset every time. After every object, it will reset. Let's see what will happen now. I will run this and let's run this I'm just running in separate command prompt so that you can see clearly. You can run in terminal directly when you are practicing. So here tsc index.ts and node index.js and enter. You can see S value is continuing and N value is resets. S value is continuing 1, 2, 3, but N value is reset. That means why S value is continuing? Because it is static. You allocated for first, the same will continue for second and third. That is static memory. And N value is new for everyone. Every object it is newly allocated. That means it will reset and it is 1 only every time. So what is difference between static and non-static? And prove it with an example. This is the proof. Right? And as a developer, when you will decide when to use static and when to use non-static, what do you say? As a developer, when you will decide when to use static, when to use non-static. We use static when we need continuous operations. We need non-static when we need discrete operation. Discrete operation, that means every operation independent. Continuous operation, that means we are continuing the previous. What is good and what is bad, you learned. That means using static is also required. Because we cannot, for example, if it is Gmail is using a non-static connection, then what happened? You logged in and verified first mail. After you finished the first mail, it will disconnect and it will ask login for second mail. You cannot log in for every email, right? So that is not good for that kind of application. We need continuous operations until signed out. But such operations are required for certain applications because they are highly secured, right? In that case, we use discrete. That means I done some transaction finished. For the next transaction, it will ask my credential again. It has to verify again. It will not continue the previous, right? This is technically static and non-static. I will copy this example for you. This is an example for static and non-static. So how you can configure the static members and the non-static members. So this is not there in JavaScript. In JavaScript, we have class. In JavaScript, you have properties, methods, constructors, and everything. But we don't have static and non-static configuration. But now we have that. We can do that. Okay. Second important is, another important is in class. We need to know access modifiers. Access modifiers in class, which is not there in JavaScript, and we have that in TypeScript. Actually, what is the purpose of access modifier? The purpose of access modifier. What is the purpose of access modifier? Access modifier is used to define code level security. Generally, the purpose of access modifiers is to define the code level security. So technically it is used for code level security. Code level security means, is this member accessible to another class or not? Is this member accessible outside this class or not? That is the code level security. That means we need to prevent and we need to define accessibility of every member in a class. And for that, we need a code level security that is defined by access modifier. So access modifier is used to define code level security. And TypeScript supports 3 access modifiers for class members. For class members, we have 3 access modifiers. We have public, we have private, and we have protected. Public, private, and protected. What is default? You invented. This is not your Java. I am talking about TypeScript. Okay. Don't show up your other language skills here. Right? We are discussing about TypeScript. Default is there. You invented. No. Right? So the TypeScript have only 3 access modifiers. Okay. Public, private, and protected. Right? Yeah. So technically, access modifiers, different languages, different access modifiers will be there. We are talking about TypeScript. Don't put your other technology knowledge here. Right? Some terms are same, but some limitations are there. Right? So what is public, what is private, and protected? We will see these 3. Technically, public member is accessible. Public member is accessible within the class, and outside class. Public member is accessible within class, outside class. Okay, good. Now, public member, it is accessible by using current class object or derived class object. It is accessible by any object, current class object or derived class object. It is accessible inside the class, outside the class. It is accessible with any object, current class object or derived class object. That is the nature of public. That is the nature of public. I will show you. We will see with example, right? That is public. Okay. Next, what is private? Technically private. So private member is accessible within the class, not outside class. Is not accessible outside class. Private member is accessible only within the class. It is not accessible outside the class. That means very important is you cannot access private member by using any object. You cannot access private member by using any object. Either it is current class object or it is derived class object, not accessible. So private member is accessible only within the class, not outside the class. And any object cannot access private member. either it is same class object or derived class object. It is not possible, right? Let's see, we will see. Another option is protected. This is here important. Actually, protected member is accessible within the class. That's okay. It is accessible within the class. But protected member is accessible outside the class, but within derived class, and only by using derived class object. Only by using derived class object. Let's prove this point, right? We will see practically, then you can get a more clarity on that. So what is protected member? Is accessible outside the class. Okay, good. But not everywhere. It is accessible outside the class, but not everywhere. It is accessible outside the class in derived class only. It is accessible outside the class, but in derived class only it is accessible. But within derived class and not by using that class object. It is accessible only by using derived class object. Within derived class, using derived class object only it is accessible. Any other way it is not accessible. That means it is accessible only for derived class and derived class object. Let's see the point. You can get more clarity. See. So you will get more clarity on this. Let's see. I will put here. So class demo or say class product. Okay. In this we have public name, and it is what type? It is a string type. So that is one member. What second? We have private. We have a price, and it is number type. Okay. We have protected, and it is a stock, and it is Boolean type. Okay. We have three members. So that means we have public, we have private, and protected. These are the three access modifiers. Now I am creating another class. We are creating another class. This is actually derived. Just for your understanding sake, I am giving derived, and it extends which class? Product. This is inheritance. It is extending the product class. Okay. Now I am creating an object for, let's see, I am creating an object for base class. If I create an object for base class, through that object, which member is accessible now? Through that object, which member is accessible? Only public member is accessible. Only public member is accessible. Private and protected are not accessible. You see, obj dot, only name is there. Only name is accessible. That means you cannot access private, you cannot access protected. That means outside the class. Inside the class, all three are accessible. So outside the class, you can access only name, only public. And see, with any object, this is product or which object? Derived. Through derived object also, only name is accessible. Only name is accessible. So that means this is accessible within the class, outside the class, by using base class object or by using derived class object. Okay. Now see protected. Observe carefully. I created an object for derived class, but protected member is not accessible. What is the protected member? Stock. Stock is not there. That means what is the limitation of protected member? Let's see what I told you. It is accessible outside the class, but it is not working. It is not working because outside the class, but within derived class. Okay, that means it is not accessible here. What we have to do in the derived class, we have some print method. In this print method, we are creating an object, let obj is equal to new product. And through that, I am accessing here also only name is coming. That means you can access in derived class, but one more restriction is there. You can access in derived class and only by using derived class object. That means this is not derived class object. That is not derived class object. That is the base class object. Derived class object we will create. Derived class object we create. Now you can see obj can access both name and stock. Public and protected. That means what is the meaning of protected? Protected is accessible within the class, outside the class, but only in derived class, only by using derived class object. Anything else not accessible. Only by using derived class object. That means even you create an object for the base class product, it is not accessible. It is not accessible. The protected member is accessible within the derived class by using derived class object. You can see it is now accessible. But remember, if you create this object outside the derived class, it is not accessible, only name. And if you don't give any access modifier to any member, by default it is public. In TypeScript, if you don't give any access modifier to any member, then by default it is treated as public. Not like other languages, some have private members. But here everything is public. Everything is public. That means if you don't define access modifier, by default it is public. That is why you can see print is public. That means you don't define that print is public by default. That is why it is accessible here. So how to access a protected member? How to access a protected member? We have to create an object of derived class within the derived class. Through that we can access protected members. So what is the intention of protected members? By seeing this, what you understood? What is the intention of protected members? What is the intention of protected members? They are accessible only in the derived class using derived class object only. That means what is the intention of a protected member? The intention of a protected member to use only in extensibility. Only in extensions. That means you want a member to be extended only in extensibility. Yesterday we discussed extending. Class also extending, I will tell you, then you can understand. We saw the extensibility of interface. Class also we will see how we can handle the extensibility and all, right? Then you can understand. So what is the difference between this? That means you see now I am creating an object is equal to new derived, and through that object I can access name, and through that object I can access stock. If I create an object outside, so it is for derived class, here also I can access only name. If I create an object, so for base class, right? If I create an object for base class is product, yeah. So here also I can access only name. others are not accessible. So, and inside this class, suppose we have a print method inside the class, then console.log, all these members are accessible. That means here I am printing this dot name is accessible, this dot name is accessible, and here this dot price is accessible, and this dot, so here I am giving this dot stock is accessible. All are accessible within the class. Within the class, all are accessible. But outside the class, depending on the access modifier. So that is technically difference between public and protected. I hope you understood protected. Protected members are accessible within the class, outside the class, but only in the derived class by using only derived class object. Anything else not accessible, right? That is public, private, and protected. This is a just basic syntactical example to show you how the members are accessible, right? This is not there in JavaScript. In TypeScript, we have that facility. That means we have in TypeScript, we can define code level security. By using that code level security, we can manage, right? These you will see later everywhere, how to handle them. We are learning language. This entire language we are going to implement in our Angular, right? You are learning what it is, how to write, what is the purpose. This main intention is to utilize this all in Angular, right? We will see. So technically, class contains here extra static and non-static members, and it contains access modifiers. Access modifiers. What are those? Public, private, and protected. Now, important here you need to know is the members detail. So, what is a property? Properties. What is the purpose of property? Actually, properties are used to store data. So outside class data is stored in variable. Inside class, it is in property. Then obviously I given you the question, what is difference? What is difference between property and variable? What is difference between property and variable? For example, you see here, I am creating, so let, some name, it is a string type, and I stored some Samsung TV. And inside the class, I have product class. In that we have price. So I will give public price, and it is number type. In that we can store some details. Now outside the class, data is stored in variable. Inside the class, it is stored in property. As I already told you, inside the class, we cannot declare a variable. It's not possible. You see, it says that unexpected token, a constructor, method, accessor, or property only allowed. Expected. That means class can contain only 4 members. It can be a property or a method or an accessor or an constructor. Anything else not allowed. But important here, this is declared outside the class. So outside the class, and I am trying to use here, see, I am writing a print method, and here I am using console.log. I am printing the details like name is equal to, I can access that name directly here. Variables cannot be declared inside class, but they can be accessed and used inside class. Now, why that reason I will tell you. See, price is equal to this dot price because it is within it. Now I am trying to access here. So let obj is equal to new product, and through that obj I am accessing print, and it is able to print the details. You see tsc index.ts and node index.js. It's working fine. Variables cannot be declared inside class. They can be declared only outside class. Now, obviously, variable is also storing data. Property is also storing data. Then what is difference between variable and property? That is what we discussed already in the beginning itself. Actually, variables are immutable. Variables are immutable. Variables are immutable. So that means their structure cannot change dynamically. But properties are mutable. Mutable. That means they can change. Mutable. That means they can change. They can change the structure dynamically. I will tell you. Now we have to prove this point. Variables are immutable. Their structure cannot change, but properties can change. So that is the reason I told you that why variables are not allowed in class, because they are immutable. Immutable members are never allowed in a class, right? But we can access them. Class can access, class cannot declare. Class cannot declare immutable members. Accessing means we are just using it for data. We are accessing the data. So what is difference is properties are mutable and variables are immutable. Now the question here is, so prove that point. That means prove that properties are mutable. That means they can change the structure according to the situation. For example, for that we need an example to define. I will just give a point first. For example, we have price and we have name. Now, generally, anybody can change the name. Anybody can change the name. Anybody can change the price. That means everyone can change the name and price. For example, I am just accessing obj.price. I can put a new price here. I can put a new price here. Anybody can change the price. Anybody can change the name. Now, very important is if I don't want anybody to change the price, you learned in a contract you can make it read only. How a class uses contract we will discuss. We will see that. In a contract we can make it read only. Then if you make read only, for everybody it is read only. That means they cannot assign, but we can control its behavior. For few people it is read only. For few people it can be read write. That's good. That means now price can change its behavior. For people who provide correct authentication, they can change price. If they are not authorized, they cannot change price. That means if I put read only, it will be read only every time. But I want in such a way that for some people it should be read only, for others it should be read write. If you can do that, you can prove this point. Right? That means you can prove that point if you can handle this. So we have to handle that. With an example, we will see how we can change the behavior of a property. For that, actually, we need accessors. By using accessors, we can do that. That we will see in our next session. Right? In the next session, we will discuss about properties, methods, constructors, detailing. Right? First, we have to discuss about properties, then about constructors. Okay. So because our admin is verifying all your details, so until Monday, same link will continue. Okay, classroom link, Google Classroom link until Monday, same will continue. Our admins will verify all the details. then they will provide a new link. Then I will give you the code in the class. So from Monday onwards, our classroom code will change. Okay, Monday I will give you that. All these examples in previous link only I will upload. Okay, right.